NYIG players, welcome back to our How to Master Your Opening series. I'm Filippo. So in last episode we have learned how to respond to white's approach from this side and this side. And now we begin our topic on the 3-3 invasion. So when we see this 3-3 invasion, the first instinct is that, oh, this is suggested by AI and there are lots of complicated AI variations involved. Of course, there are also a lot of traps and mistakes involved in this case. So many maybe lower level players are afraid of this 3-3 invasion. They prefer more simple and easier Joseki. But my point is that because you cannot control what your opponents do. So in some cases, even if you don't want to play complicated variations, your opponent will play this kind of 3-3 invasion. And it's important for you to know how to simplify things so that you can play a game that you can manage. On the other hand, sometimes we want to make things more complicated. In this case, we also know that there are some moves that can complicate things up and make your opponents more challenging. So if we can both simplify things and complicate things up, then we can say that we can master this kind of Joseki. So let's see. So when whites play this 3-3 invasion, of course, the immediate response for black is either to block this side or block this side. Of course, you can Tanuki, but if you Tanuki, it's almost like white gets 3 corners instantly and you are initiating an approach. So even if you play some, let's say, approach, white, let's say, crawl like this, we know that when the player firstly place a stone in the corner, they must gain some first mover advantage. So in this case, whites get 3 first mover advantages in 3 corners and you only get 1. So black is definitely not very good in this case. So let's see what if we respond then. So of course black, normally in traditional classic kind of theory, black should block in the side that it has influence of itself. So let's say we have 2 black stones on the bottom side, so we should block on this side. That's what the textbook tells us. So white will definitely crawl. And traditional Joseki is we hane, black hane, and then black extend, white extend, white crawl and black extend. So traditionally white will play this second line honey and connect. Black plays the tiger moth. We all know that this is not good for white, but AI tells us that this version is no good for white because the second line honey and connect is bad. It strengthens black influence outside and there is no immediate concern for white to do this exchange directly. Instead, white will play a 4th line splitting move. If black plays the checking extension, white will do the second space extension here. Because the weakness of this pick and the 5 stones on the top right corner are considered not to be very strong in this case. So white has enough territory. And of course, before you make the extension, maybe you want to crawl first, because if you play the extension directly, black will get this and force you to make this exchange. It's not very good for white then. So this is actually the first AI variation that is acceptable for both players. So when white plays the splitting move, black plays checking extension. Now before white plays this move, white crawl, black extend, and white plays the second space extension. And then black plays the capping move. White maybe Kasumi or try to 1 space jump. Kasumi is better in terms of shape, and later on black may play some fancy attacking like this, and it's beyond our discussion. This is mid-game technique. However, if you are not very strong, don't want to play complicated moves, but you are not satisfied with the splitting case, because we know that black is not very strong there, and black is not able to have a very strong influence on the right hand side also. So in this case, black may choose some other variations, which is not very complicated too. So first is this honey, and honey again. This joseki is acceptable for both players in most cases. In this case, after we finish this joseki, because this is a white star, white has considerable influence outside. So white may want to push again to further develop this side and then limit what black have on the right hand side. In this case, I would say that white is slightly ahead, because the surrounding stones on maybe on the top left corner and bottom right corner are not very supporting the territorial style of black. So if many of you may want to develop the right hand side further, but if you honey, white honey, black extend, white extend, and in this case, because you have this splitting move and this sente, white can easily just leave on the right hand side. It's not very, maybe the splitting move either here or here, I think is acceptable. So in this case, this black is not very efficient. So maybe black will need to tenuki or try to reduce white instead of developing it further in this kind of follow-up. So normally, unless you have some stones here, it's not very common to see black playing this move to make territory using this joseki. However, white may also try to tenuki, like for example, play this approach, or defend a corner, or defend a corner. But now this is a very big move. After this move, black will have another nice move to press white down, and now what black can extend on the side to have a moil on this side. So in another word, black, this nice move creates a mare for black to play. 2 good points. Black will have one. So after this, of course, the follow-up will be, for example, white may choose to play like that, or honey out, or disconnect. They are roughly the same, which is that black can have a sente to press white down, and white will get the side territory. But that may not be the white's intention when we play this kind of game. So I recommend white to play this move. If black is not happy about this variation also, the third simple joseki is to extend further. In this case, white will have 3 responses. One is this third line crawl. Second is this nice move on the second line and the jump out. So if white jump out, this is a very common case. Common joseki nowadays in the AI age. So after that, black will maybe try to tenuki and then extend on the side, or just play the 3-3 invasion in the other corners, or approach, or anything else. If black want to play further, play something else, or finish this joseki up, black will honey from the second line, Kusumi or the knight move press down. So if black plays this honey, black will not connect. Black will play this. However, in this case, because the direction of the juseki is not very good, when we finish the juseki like that, white gets to turn to the right hand side, and the black's direction is limited by this white star. So in this case, black's direction is not very good. So normally when black block on this side, on the bottom side, it's not very often for us to see this move. Instead, if black wants to play some follow-ups, black will play this more often. So if white respond, usually respond with a fight. So usually white will play this honey now, because if you don't play the honey, this will be a center for black. And this block will be the center as well. Otherwise, this placement will cause life of this white corner. So usually white will play this honey. And this fight, I think, is acceptable for both players. Later on, white may choose to jump or choose to split or choose whatever you want. If white is not very happy about this connection and the fight, not very comfortable about it, I can also honey and connect. I reserve a chance of cutting you, and then I'll play the splitting move, maybe, or the approach. I can also tanuki in some cases. If you play this knight move, I will tanuki. I'll play the splitting move directly. Later on, this second knight extension descent is very important. White will try to push and make a leave in there. Maybe one more, and then white will tanuki. Or it's not very good for white to block, because if you block, I will block you, and then later on the corner is dead. If I push and honey, it will be a big mouth in the corner. So normally white still respond, but if you don't respond, I'm exchanging the corner's territory to the speed of the opening. It's playable, but it's relatively high level. So we've discussed about this, and the third one is this. So after this Kusumi, white again would have response like this, this, and this. I'll reserve this move later, and we'll discuss this shape. So if white plays the extension, black can always exchange this in center. This is a good thing for this exchange. The bad thing is that later on white can just play the knight move out. It's even harder for black to limit white's influence on the top side and also to expand here. So this exchange actually doesn't help the outside. It helps the corner and the right hand side. Remember that. So even though we place a stone, let's say, seemingly trying to increase our influence in the center, but it's actually helping the side. White can also honey. If in this case, black will play the tiger mouth. If white extend, and black will exchange this immediately. Later, because this is not a Tetsuji in this case, because the white's corner is already alive, white will definitely counterattack, and this is not a good exchange. Maybe black will try to push, either to push or to jump, instead of this. It's different from this shape, so many of you are familiar with this Tetsuji. So in this case, this is a Tetsuji, because white will not, it's probably not good for white to counterattack in this case, because the corner is still not leaving. But in this case, white's corner is already alive. So it's not very good in this case. And if white choose to jump, first, usually white plays this move when the ladder works for white. In this case, it works. But even if sometimes, for example, this is a black stone, white can still play this occasionally. Black will cut inside. If you cut outside, it will return to this strategy, which is still okay for black. But since we don't want to choose this hane, so we don't want to return to this variation anyway. We want to cut inside, let white capture, and we'll apply the ladder. Even if this is a black stone, if the ladder breaker is somewhat very severe, this is definitely playable for white. In the past, it's definitely good for black because black seems very strong if black plays some, let's say, either capture or play some fancy move to protect the ladder. We really think that black's influence definitely outweighs white's small territory in the corner. However, because white is able to maybe play two moves, and including a ladder breaker consecutively, nowadays we think that it's kind of playable for white to choose this variation. In this case, the ladder works, so black can definitely, it's definitely not working for black to push and cut. Because if now you push and cut, you can no longer capture a stone. You have to extend out. And if you extend out, white will just maybe fight directly instead of waiting maybe for another move. White will just push. If you hane, I'll just jump. It's very hard for black to fight this successfully. And remember, it's your corner and I invade you. If you cannot get enough compensation from attacking, I have two corners waiting there. It's very hard for black to make comfortable komi in this case. So what to do next? The first response is still tenuki. So remember, we can always tenuki in this case. We can do in this case as well. So we can maybe play the side extension, either fourth line or third line. And later on, white's safe move is here. So it's roughly similar to this kind of shape. We've seen this quite a lot. And this as well. So later on, black usually exchange for the push and hane. And then black will maybe try to either expand it or invade the top side. If you don't play anything in this, knight move is very big. After white plays this knight move, now this is expanding and the 3 stone is very weak. you will maybe have to protect the side anyway. And this exchange definitely helps quite a lot. White can also push. If you honey, I'll honey. If you counter honey, I'll just Atari, connect, extend. And then I'll play the shoulder head. That's complicated. So if you are not very comfortable with this variation, you probably don't want to choose this. So because it all depends on how you manage the follow-ups. So later on, this is the RG for black, but this stone is RG for white. So both players have lots of RGs, and black can even have RG like this. But if you cannot treat the RG very properly, you can easily lose the benefit brought by this variation, and it will turn to a good variation for your opponent. So that's why I say this is complicated, because you need to manage all the RG very well. So how can we simplify this? So if white chooses this, we know that white will push up, so why not just push again? So preventing white from doing what white wants to complicate things up. So in this case, if white extends, now we can push and disconnect it. Because of this exchange, white can no longer attack from this side. In this case, this will be too good for black. I made this exchange. So white must connect the corner. And now we see the familiar Tetsuji. White Atari, black block. Usually white exchange for this. And now it's time for black to Tanuki. Black will play the extension. This is an acceptable simple variation for both players. If white play Kasumi instead, now it's easier for black. Black can either Tanuki. If you Tanuki, it will become the shape like this. We are familiar with this. This is simple. And so after this exchange, black is able to play the side extension. Black avoids the complicated variation of this push-up. If black wants to make things complicated, black will play this move. If white Atari, black will push and capture the corner. In the future, the value of this move is very subjective. It depends on how you can manage the side influence and the top influence. So there is no definite response for this. Usually the AI says that the version is slightly good for black, but the difference is very minor. So both players can try this variation. If you try to connect instead, then I extend. So normally we believe that this exchange is slightly good for black because black reserves this first as a code thread. Second, it frees one liberty of these four stones, which definitely helps in the fight later on. If white connect, then black will extend, white cross, and then now it's a good time to Tanuki. Normally in the past we cannot suffer this kind of honey when we have two stones here, but actually in this case we'll just Tanuki again, and we'll find that black is actually moving faster than white in this case. So to sum up, this is a good move to simplify things. So when we have this jump. So the third one is this crop. If we honey, we'll return to this classic shape. And still I'll reserve this to later, to our next class. So if you want to play simply, we'll just play this one. If white crawl and you extend again. So it's similar to this Joseki, but we have one more stone on the fourth line, so the cutting point is 1 line higher. In this case, this difference is good for black, because now the pip is less severe. If you pip like here, we can just extend, ignoring the cut. If you cut, I'll jump. So this fight is totally fightable for black. Unlike this case, you'll probably have to jump like this. If you cut, then there will be a push and cut later on. So if white has some stones here, this pip is very severe. In this case, no. Because if you pip, I'll play this one space extension. It's very comfortable. Or I'll play this exchange first, or this exchange first. This is always a testing move. So after that, white will probably still play the splitting move either here or here. If white plays the splitting move here, I mean in the center between the two groups, black will usually respond from this side. If white plays here, then black will probably play this side. If it's higher, then probably black will play checking extension from here. Similarly, I'll play here. So I'm not seeing a lot this one because it will allow white to, press black to the side instead of the center. So usually black will respond like this. But it's all very minor and delicate kind of issues in this case. So we can see that if you place the block on the right hand side, it's always easy for black to simplify things and get a sente. So if we choose to extend, it's always going to be a simple variation for black. Although you can complicate things up, like let's say like playing the knight move, but it will be very complicated, and perhaps it's not the best direction for you to play this variation if you considering the surrounding stones. So if you are interested about the version of this, Ryan have a special lecture on this Joseki and you can refer it. I will not elaborate further. And that's all for today's lecture. In the next lecture, we'll discuss what if black blocks on this side. Because of the surrounding issue, the choice of Joseki will be totally different in this case. So that's all for today's How to Master Your Opening. Thank you for watching. If you like our video, please subscribe us and follow our website and social media. Once again, thank you for watching today's video, and Filippo. See you next week.